Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's Matt Cook with Jonathan Green and Men's Mayhem. And each week we dissect some very interesting relationships and dating questions and give you some really, really great advice that you'll never hear anywhere else. Um, I am Matt Cook, and I have about 700,000 subscribers. I'm a relationship and sex and health expert. And Jonathan Green was a world famous dating coach, one of the top dating coaches in the world until he's retired now on a tropical island. And here we all are. How's your Valentine's Day going, Jonathan?
It's just a crazy one. I had to go to the doctor this morning for a sore
Oh
throat.
no.
And of course,
Oh man.
here they always want to go straight to let's do an IV, let's take your blood.
Oh,
And it's like, I was
did they
like, I
give it
don't need an
back?
IV. No, they take your blood and they're like, oh, I'm like, we both know it's just like a way to pad the bill. There's not going to find anything for
Right.
sore throat, right? And it's
Right.
like,
No.
yeah, they're like, we just have to make sure it's not something. And then they just name a disease you've never heard of. And I'm like, it's
Oh.
fine. It's not like it's like $7. So it's not like it's a huge deal. Happy to do it. Whatever. I do the blood test. And of course, everything's fine. They just gave me lozenges. And then had to take my son to get his tooth pulled today. So that
Oh
was an
no.
adventure.
Oh
Not
yeah.
like
That's
that. You know, when you're like five, sometimes tooth's got to go. You know what I mean? So
yeah. It
maybe teeth
doesn't
are not
go. It
meant to
doesn't
last.
leave. It wants to stay.
Yeah, he wanted
Yeah.
to keep it for sure. So that was just my day. But overall, it is what it is, right? Like that's what I switched for. It's much better than the old Valentine's days where I was like, I'm going to go out and trying to find a lonely girl.
Yeah.
Like, because it
Not
is
that
one of the
difficult to
most
find
desperate
lonely
nights of
girls.
the year. Yeah, I
It's
look
a
for
lot
any
of them.
girl that says something like anyone who calls this like Singles Pride Day or any of those other different names they call it, like right? Instead of Valentine's Days, they
No, I
call it like
haven't heard
different
that.
single
Really?
names.
Oh no, I didn't
Oh
know
yeah,
that.
there's different names for it, like Proud to be Single Day and all that stuff. Those are
Oh,
the people who try and rename it are the most desperate.
yeah.
Those are the that's the deer with the broken leg, if you will. So that's who I used to look for, like on Facebook. Anyone who wrote something like that, like, "Oh, I love being single on Valentine's Day." It's like, if you did, you wouldn't say it. You wouldn't need to tell me. Like it's
Well,
like when
that's
someone
true.
tells you, "I'm the humblest man in the world." It's like,
Yeah,
if you have to
that's a
tell me
brag.
you're humble,
That's a brag. That's a brag.
yeah, you're
Yeah. Well,
that's
we
the
have a theme
opposite.
today. The
I
theme
love it.
is I confess. Should you tell the truth to your partner, and what happens if you do? Do you regret it? And of course, the big thing that people confess, which I don't think we even have a question on that today, is "I love you." Oops, I shouldn't have said that. That confession. But we have some really cool confessions to talk about, and this is also one thing brought to you by the sponsor. Of this is our wonderful company, Farrell. Remember, you're just one spray away. Farrell is an attraction cologne with animalic accords that women can't get enough of on a man. So you want to have every advantage and edge that you can. And they'll give you a free bottle. You just have to help them out with shipping. Go to attractivehabit.com. So, are we ready for the first question? I'll ask the first question because
Okay.
this is a classic Valentine's Day question. The woman says, my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 4 years, and he's not sure if he wants to marry me. So I gave him an ultimatum, but I'm starting to doubt my desire to marry him. I'm, I already know his answer. I'm not ready to break up with him. We still do couple things like have sex. He asked me out on a date for Valentine's. It feels weird because I'm pretty sure he would rather break up with me than ask me to marry him. What should I do? That's the trouble with
It's
ultimatums. You're kind of
yeah.
stuck. You're in a corner.
So there's a couple of things that guys will say. One of which is, I don't ever want to get married. So it might not be you, right? He might just be someone like, look, I don't want to marry anyone. There's a lot of reasons for that. Marriage is definitely does not favor men in our culture in America for sure. In Canada, it's even worse. So there's a lot of reasons for a guy not to want to get married, both financially and just being it's a financially responsible decision to not marry. So how much it shifted, right, with the laws of the last 50 years. So there could be that. But there's also the example of a guy who says, I never want to get married, and then you break up, he marries the next girl. It's just like the person who says they never want to have kids, and then they have kids with the next person. So
He
you
meant I
don't
don't want to
really,
marry you. I just wasn't sure. I don't want to marry you. But he's not
yeah.
going to
Because
tell her that.
on my first date, I told my wife, I said, listen, I'm never getting married. It's not what I'm into. I just, same thing. And then, well, now 11 years later, we're married. So the right person can make you change. But once you bring an ultimatum into a relationship, the relationship is dead. It's an it's a waypoint from which you cannot survive because it's kind of like it's a threat, right? So like once you hold a knife to someone, even if you get through it, they never forget it, right? It's still always there, and it just might. It's only a question of how fast or slow it kills the relationship. So once you bring in those things, and it's like, do you really want to say, "Oh, why'd you get married?" Oh, because I threatened your dad, right? Like that's not a story you ever want to tell anyone, right? So an ultimatum, I've never heard of an ultimatum leading to a positive result. You've been around longer than me. Have you ever heard of someone said, "Yeah, my wife gave me an ultimatum. It was the best thing that ever happened to me"?
I would say the problem here is 4 years. They're having a relationship for 4 years. I could see it in a year because that's what she should do. If she wants to get married and it's like a year or whatever, right around there, she might say, "Well, I want to get married to you, or else I think I want to find somebody because I want to have someone to spend the rest of my life with, and I don't feel comfortable. Not, I really want to get married and have children and all that." If she said that and after a year, it's fine. But 4 years, you're kind of showing that you're okay with the status quo. And now you're trying to change the rules so precipitously after 4 years. So I think it shows a very confused, and she says she's very confused. She doesn't know what she wants to do. So she is very confused. And I would suggest that you, even if you don't say what you want, that you decide what you want and you give yourself the ultimatum. Does that make sense, Jonathan, that you give yourself the ultimatum instead of someone else?
Yeah. Here's what's happened. I love what you're saying because I agree with you. I think that she's in a version of the friend zone, which is the reason the friend zone is so painful is because you have half of the relationship you want, right? You have
Hmm.
some of your emotional needs met, but not your physical needs, and you spend time together, so you get that, but you don't, and sometimes you even exchange gifts. So you hit some of the love languages, but not all. And in this case, she's getting some of her needs met, but not all, which is why she stayed with him for 4 years. It's why it's harder to break up. It's much harder to leave a relationship that's half in the middle than it is a relationship that's terrible. So the reason she stuck around so long is like, well, it's not good enough to be happy, but it's not bad enough to leave. And it's in kind of that bad state in the middle. So that's why she stuck around. And you have to, you're exactly right, set certain boundaries. And they can be the boundary of talking about the past. My friend used to say, oh, if I wake up 3 mornings in a row and I'm unhappy, then I break up. And as long as you tell the other person, you have to tell the other person so they know going in. And I know other people who are have a very strict, I don't go to bed angry. One of my policies is if I'm in a relationship and she's mad at me and I say, well, why are you mad at me? She goes, you know what you did. That's to me, that's a breakup. That's an instant. It's over.
Hmm. Yeah,
I will not be on
that's a.
trial where I don't know the crime. I'm not playing that game where I have to guess
Mhm.
what I did wrong. And the last I have done that before. And I remember the last person that happened with, like, I'm so glad that I jumped at ship. So whatever, you have to have some rules. And when you don't, when you have no boundaries, well, then you're going to get, no one's going to respect those boundaries because they don't exist. So I think that what you should do in this situation is rather than an ultimatum, you just have to say to the person, like, do you ever want to get married to anyone? Like, start there because it's like she jumped straight to, do you want to marry me or break up? And it's like that's a huge shift, and he's probably feels the same way as her. They probably are both at a 5 in the relationship. Like, don't love it enough to get married, don't hate it enough to break up. And
Well,
I
after
mean, she
four
does.
years, that's telling. Um,
And for her,
that's
here's
what
what
I
I
mean.
advise: break up. If you're, I can tell you right now, they should break up. It's so
Right.
clear
Well,
because
that's very clear. It's very clear.
she's like, I kind of want to marry, but I kind of don't. That's not when you get married. That's a really bad.
I think she's afraid of being alone right now, and so
Yeah.
it's not really
So
that she doesn't want to be by herself. But yeah, I think that her objective is probably to have children and all of that. So she should find someone that wants to, and maybe he does. Sometimes
yeah.
people break
Well, maybe
up,
children will
and
solve the. Maybe children will
that
solve it.
precipitates. Yeah, sometimes that's like, oh, please, let's get married, and it changes everything. So that could happen. So do you have? Yeah, you take the next question.
Okay. So, um,
Dare I ask?
I've been with my ex for 3 years, and it was always difficult. And I've always been into ladies and boys, and thought that I liked everything until 2 years ago. My parents were always very supportive. And then I told him that I like both, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine." Because here's what every guy hears. Let's cut right to the age. When every guy hears "I'm bi," he hears threesomes coming your way. Like that's all that the guy
Hmm.
hears, right?
Hmm.
Not
I see.
I like one or the other. It's I like both. at the same
Okay.
time.
At the
So
same time. Okay.
we had tons of things in common, and from interests and hobbies, and we even went to the same gym, which is really important to me. To me, that's a red
Is this a
flag.
man or a woman talking? I'm not clear
This
about
is the
that.
woman talking, and how crazy
Okay.
is it that like she's really? He goes, he's so romantic. He's like Prince Charming, eternal love, super sweet,
Okay.
made me feel special. And I loved him for that. But anytime a woman calls you Prince Charming, there's going to be a but. And then he goes, to the last year. After 6 months, I realized that I only like girls now. The switch
Mhm.
is fully flipped. Alex, my
Sure.
boyfriend, converted me.
Of course.
He fully convinced me that I never want to be another man. So for 6 months, I didn't want him or my parents to be upset. So for 6 months, I just tried to avoid the bedroom with him.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
kept using excuses. And then I told my parents, and they were cool with it. And then they said, well, what did you tell your boyfriend? It's like, that's a pretty legit question. And then finally, after weeks, she
Mhm.
told him. So
Okay.
he was supposed to come to our house to have a talk. That's such an uncool way to do it. It's like you have to come over
Yeah.
after work, so you have to spend all day knowing something bad's coming your way. And for
Yeah.
two
Talk
hours,
is. Who wants that?
yeah, for 2 hours I spent rehearsing my speech. And I basically, instead of all that, instead of my memory speech, I go, listen, the reason I haven't slept with you is because I'm gay now. And he did not say anything for 1 hour. I spent an hour talking, which I'm sure he
Hmm.
enjoyed. I feel
Hmm.
like when you tell your boyfriend that you're gay and you're breaking up with him, he shouldn't have to listen to you nag him for another hour. Like you should just stop.
I
Finally,
think that should be a rule. I think once you say that, there's nothing else to say.
yeah. So I thought, oh, I'm crying, and did I do something wrong? And I was trying to be nice
Yes.
about him.
She
I
bored him
tried
for
to
an
text,
hour.
I tried to text him, and shockingly, he blocked me.
Yeah. Good for him.
So,
This is a class. So what does she want to know? What's her ask?
oh no, it gets crazier. Of course, it
Oh.
gets
Oh.
crazier.
Okay. Okay. Of
A week
course.
later, I saw him at the gym, and I'm already dating another girl. And I tried to get near him to talk. He completely ignored me and continued to work out. So a week ago, I saw him again. And he's a completely different person. He looks. This is real. This gets really weird. He's extremely jacked and fit, has a long beard, but now he's ignoring me again. So I decided I have to have a serious talk with him. I cornered him at the gym and decided to have a serious talk, but he didn't even listen to me while I was talking, and was just walking around and said, "Listen, do me a favor and don't talk to me again. I stopped dating after you because you broke something in me, and I would never stop blaming you for this because it's all your fault. I can't trust women anymore because I always feel that way." And he walked
Hmm.
away. I cried a
I
lot,
see. Oh.
and so it's my fault for breaking him. So this happened to me. I don't know if I've told you this, but when I was in college, I dated a woman who, after me, only
But
dated
she
women.
decided she liked girls only.
Well, I think there were a lot of signs. Like let's just say she went to a lot of Indigo Girls concerts, and at the time didn't know that that's like a 100% lesbian band. So
I
like
had
her
no
top,
idea what that. I would have no idea.
well, exactly because you're a guy, but let's just say it's like she was like Melissa Etheridge, Indigo Girls, and Tori Amos, which are three bands that like are notorious, like they're lesbians bands.
Okay.
Most of
Okay.
these bands are lesbians, and
Okay.
I was missing the big side, so it wasn't like she converted. But
Okay.
after me, the worst part was the girl she dated after me was hotter than her. And so like I was like, well, that's not fair. Like you shouldn't be able to break up with me and get someone hotter, right? Like so, but I think he's upset because she spent 6 months basically abusing him, I would
It's
say.
horrible.
Like
6 months is horrible.
six
Well,
months
okay.
not
So the thing
lying.
is, he
Mark.
shouldn't have taken that for 6 months. So to me, here's what happens if we're not having sex. I'm not going to stand for that. I would say, unless there's like a physical problem, that we're all working on, it's obvious.
But we don't
Not
know the
going to
lie
happen.
she told him. We don't know
Well,
how bad of a lie she
okay.
told.
Oh, I have
That's,
vaginal cancer, and I can't. The
yeah,
doctor
that's
said I
what I'm
can't.
afraid of. Or
Whatever. Yeah, something
there's a
like
couple of
that.
other ones that are like you don't know if it's real. They're like invisible.
Yeah.
Was it cystic
Okay.
fibrosis? There's no way to tell if she really
Okay. It's possible. Yeah, it's possible that she gave him this
be a
horrible
monster.
lie.
She
Yeah, it
might
is
be a
possible.
monster.
Yeah, it is possible. But anyway, regardless of that, I would just say, yeah, it's kind of difficult if you love somebody and they're giving you a story, which elicit sympathy. Obviously, we're all, if we're loving, we don't want our girlfriend going through that. But 6 months is a long time to put up with that. So watch those signs. You see, I don't think it's what people say that counts, it's what they do that counts. It's kind of like the last question we had, which was about, the guy isn't marrying her, so obviously he doesn't want to get married, but he's with her, so he obviously wants to be with her. Like, that's just what's out there in the real world. That's what's true. In this case, she wasn't having sex with him for 6 months. That's a fact. I would have stopped it after, a couple weeks. I don't have a lot of patience for that. I don't
I
think
think
a romantic relationship can sustain or should sustain itself without a strong sexual ongoing component.
I get the feeling that they're quite young, like early 20s, because a
Oh,
younger
okay.
guy will put up with a lot more. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
especially like, oh, this
right.
is the first I was with, or my first
Because he
long-term
lacks
relationship.
confidence in himself. He doesn't know who he is and
Yeah,
hasn't
you
been through
don't
the
know.
ringer.
And yeah,
Hmm.
so
My advice to him, though, is every man, every woman goes through this heartbreak. The first one that really means a lot to you, and then there's a breakup. I think that's a rite of passage. And we probably all remember who that one is. I certainly remember that. I actually had two or three of them. Very traumatic, right? In different ways. And so he's not really broken. He'll be fine. He just needs a little time, as they say, to process. That's the word they all use nowadays, process. And then he'll be fine. He'll meet someone at the gym or whatever. Then by then it's all over after that point. He doesn't have to think
I
about her
mean,
again. So
I can't believe he still goes to the same gym. Like, I would have definitely changed gyms or
yeah,
something to
that's true.
avoid her.
Yeah,
Because
avoid her.
here's
Yeah,
the
he did the right
he
thing
went,
in not talking to her and engaging though. That was
oh my
smart.
God, yeah. I hate when people want to be friends after they reject you. This happened to me in
Oh,
college. A girl, so I bring a girl to a frat party for this frat I was going to join, and she likes another guy there. But everyone brings a girl, right? So there's enough
sure.
girls for everyone. So she likes a different guy, and she goes, "Listen, I'm not really into you." And I go, "Listen, why don't we just not have the talk, but say we did, so I can go back in there because there's a ton of other girls that are with guys that they don't like as well." Right? I said, "This isn't," and she goes, "No, we need to have the talk." And she just yatters on for like an hour. I don't know. She won't stop talking. And then she goes, why don't we just be friends? And this is one of the greatest moments in my life because I turned to her and I said, "I already have friends. They're called guys." And a bunch of guys heard me say that. And I was like, wow, that's like the cool. That's what you always remember the coolest thing you ever said. Like, I wish I thought of that in advance, but it just came to me. And it was like, I don't want to be friends with you. I want to do stuff to you, right? Like, I'm not interested in the friend zone. Thank you for the offer.
Well, that was
And all
smart
you
on your part.
is
Yeah,
steal my opportunity with these other people. So I was like, you're stealing my chance
I
to
haven't said
get with
that, but I
us.
have said I'm not interested in being friends. It's not what I want.
Oh no, I do not want to be friends.
No,
This guy doesn't either because all it does is every time he sees her, it's a reminder.
no,
And
no. The last thing. The last
she
thing.
she thought I'm doing him a favor by not telling him for so long, but it's like that's even worse.
Oh no,
So
it's
he
terrible.
has to deal with two
She
things
treated him
of like,
very
oh,
badly. She's a bad. She should get her act together. She was. What happened is, especially women, but a lot of men today too. They're so afraid of confrontation, and they're
they just
growing up accommodating other people and quote being nice. So when it comes time to I really don't feel sexual about him. I should tell him. But what about the look on his face? It's going to disappoint. I don't want to have that discussion. So she puts it off, puts it off, puts it off because she's afraid of being straightforward and telling him what's what because she doesn't want to make him upset. That's how it is today with a lot of people. They're so afraid of getting people upset that they don't ever say the truth. And I used to be this way to a great extent. I would have people stepping all over me, and finally I'd explode at them because, at some point I couldn't take it anymore. But I should have said something way, way sooner. So what she has to do is just learn how to be communicative and say things that she doesn't like to say as soon as she needs to say them, not put it off. And that's good
yeah.
advice for everybody, really. So
Well,
I
what
have
do
a
you
question for
think?
you. Mhm.
Yeah. What do you think the odds are that? Because she says a week later I ran into him. I already had a new girlfriend. What are the
Well,
odds that she only met this other girl right after she broke up with him?
well, I don't really know. Like in the gay male culture, men go and they hook up, same day or whatever. It's casual. I don't know how casual it is with women,
No,
with
women.
lesbians.
They're, yeah, usually their second date they're living together. So
Yeah,
Very
so it doesn't
thoughtful.
necessarily mean anything. Yeah, it
But
doesn't
it's
mean
pretty
anything.
suspicious that like a week later she's like, "You have a new girlfriend. How are you doing?" You
Yeah, but
know?
she could have gone to a gay bar and found some girl there. I don't know. But
You
yeah,
have
it's
such faith in humanity. All right, fire your next one at me.
well, here's another one sort of similar, and this is kind of an interesting question. She says, we haven't had sex in months. We both need to
Love it.
work on things, okay? I'm physically, emotionally exhausted. So here's the thing. She goes, I don't get any affection, no back rubs, no cuddles. All it is like he wants to say like you should suck it or you should do this or you should do that. And it's like there's nothing romantic or anything. There's no affection. And I said, I need affection from you. And he goes, well, how about you initiate it once? And that's really not what I mean, she's saying. She says, these are the behaviors that are pushing me away. He'll say, you should do this to me or that, and she says, well, how about give me a back rub or something? And he goes, well. So I feel like we live as roommates, that there's no real marriage anymore. And for both of us, this is a second marriage. I just want to
Oh,
feel loved again. I'm sure he feels that way, but when we have a talk, it gets defensive, it gets emotional, starts crying. And then I just don't
what?
even want to, yeah, he starts crying and I just stop talking because, I just can't handle this. It's looking hopeless. So, okay, my thought about this, and let me just hear your thought. My thought about this is that you have to become really, it's really the similar thing as the last one. You have to be really good at communicating your wants and needs. You have to be very, very good at communicating your wants and needs. And a lot of people, especially women, will tend to just let things go for a while because they want to accommodate and be nice to the man. And really, she should have brought this up, I think, years sooner, because I don't think this is new. In fact, she shouldn't have gotten married to him if he was like this. He probably was always like this, and she just ignored it. But she has to talk to him about it. It's a very serious issue, and something's wrong with the guy, in my opinion. What do you think?
I think that I know why his first marriage failed.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's poorly communicating that what she should say is, if you massage me, I will bang you. Like
Hmm.
he clearly likes
She should negotiate with him. She should do I'll
not
do this if you do
negotiation,
that.
just an explanation.
Oh,
Because
an
he
explanation.
likes to
Okay.
say, "Why don't you suck it?" Right? So she can just
Hmm.
say it's the female version of that. She's basically saying, and it's interesting because when I was younger, I used to use the massage as a way to get in there all the time. Like, why don't I give you a
Right.
massage? Oh, your
Oh,
bra's
yeah.
in the way.
Oh, it's awesome. I still use that.
Okay,
It's
so
awesome.
it's very telling that the guy doesn't know that when you want some, this is a great move, right? It says a lot about his personality. He sounds very selfish,
Childish.
but it could just be the way
Huh?
she's describing it.
Yeah.
So they've fallen into a bad pattern, which you're exactly right. It's very hard to do a reset, and they're not communicating the issue. He clearly doesn't understand that for women there has to be something before the penetration. Like it doesn't have to be an hour. This is one of the things. Sometimes you think foreplay has to be an hour. It doesn't, but 5 or 10 minutes or 20 minutes is like in exchange for like getting what you want. Especially it sounds like he wants a lot of stuff. Is like you have to see it as a cooperative thing as opposed to something you take from the other person. And it
Okay.
sounds like
So,
you see it as a journey together.
yeah. 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 I agree. And I think I think that men will do a lot for a woman. A man will do almost anything for a woman if it's about sex. So if she just becomes a lot more assertive and just says, well, we could cuddle for an hour and then I will do this or do that, and she just sticks to it, he'll do it. And maybe
I mean,
she could change her behavior because maybe he'll become more attuned to the subtle uh, signs of physical affection other than sex, the things that the rewards that they bring, which are so great. It takes a while for the brain to get attuned to that. But if she just tells him that, he'll probably do it because he wants to have sex.
well, it sounds like he doesn't, though. It sounds like he's also pulling back from the intimacy
Or
because
intimacy,
him.
yes, not but sex. But sex doesn't have to be intimate, as you know.
Okay, well, that's what I meant. So that's what I'm thinking is that maybe he also is starting to lose interest in being with her, and
Yeah,
so it could
yeah,
already be there's more damage than we know. But that's a
right.
tough one. I've got one that I
But
think you're
so
gonna.
again, I would say if I was her giving her advice, I'd say, tell him that you need to cuddle for an hour and set the clock. And then at that point, he can do this or do that. I'm serious.
Yeah, when
Because
the
that,
bell rings, you can do
yeah,
whatever you
I'm
want.
serious. I'm totally serious. Yeah, we'll do. Well, she can be very specific. After that, I'll do this, or you can do that. Yeah, and he'll probably do it. And then, if she does it enough times, he'll begin. His brain will start rewiring to the affection and the rewards of all of that. If he really does love her, the physical rewards other than sex, which are so great in a relationship. The other day, I was lying around. I work at home, and my wife came in, and she lays down on the bed, and we just cuddle or whatever. It was just so pleasurable. It wasn't sexual, but it was so pleasurable. It was just so wonderful. And I don't think that a lot of people get that because their brains aren't wired quite that way. But if you keep doing it, you get wired, and it's so pleasurable. It just builds and builds without actually, without short of sex. So take some time. So that's my advice to that person. So what's the next? So we have a news item I wanted to talk about actually. Um, well, this was a story, a study that came out. So a lot of women have trouble reaching it, the O. And what they found in this study, they did a survey where they asked all these women, like, about their usage of weed, and they found that women reach an O twice as easily or twice as frequently or even more if they smoke a little bit before sex. So I guess that's not a surprise.
You know, the thing about studies, and I've, work on some, is that it's very easy to get the result you want.
Well, yeah.
So I've seen quite a few studies where when you look at the data, they threw out all the results because it's like, of course, that's the result you want. And I wonder who sponsored the study, right? It's like all those studies that said cigarettes are good for you, they make you live forever, and all that stuff. And it's
So
like, oh,
you
who
don't
sponsored?
believe this conclusion? You don't think it's true?
I'm suspicious of it, right?
I
And
think it's
I
probably true. And I don't smoke anything or take anything,
here's
but
the thing.
I
I
think.
think it's possibly true in the short term, right? But
Hmm.
if it's something that you do, oh, this helps me, whatever, then after 20 years, right? Like I think that there's a
Hmm.
cumulative negative effect, I suspect.
There could be. There could be. Yeah. I mean,
That's what
there
I've
could
heard.
be. Yeah.
So,
But
so here's the thing.
like alcohol does the same thing for a lot of people. It puts them in a
Yeah.
sexual situation that they wouldn't get into if it wasn't for the alcohol.
Yeah. So the thing is that as a guy, like there's a thin line between I'm high enough to want to get in the mix and I'm too high, I can't do anything.
Right.
So
Oh, yeah.
it's there's always been plenty of things that you can do to increase pleasure, right? Whether it's poppers from the 80s or any other
Hmm.
stuff, or like let's joke each other. One of my feelings is that I don't want to be chemically dependent. So I don't
Right.
want to be like, oh, I can't come unless I get high, right? Like I don't
Right.
wouldn't want that to be part of my life. That's the
Right.
thing I worry about.
Well, that's a good
So
point.
that's what it is. It's not a, I mean, it certainly makes sense, right? That like, because it
Yeah,
probably
I
like,
believe the study. I read it. I read the full study. I
I
think it's
think
very
what is,
straightforward.
it lowers your stress, like you're not as worried, so
Yeah.
you can be more relaxed. I think that's what happens, which is again good in the short term, but if you're too relaxed, right, then everything turns off. So I get it.
Okay. What's the next question?
Do most women actually find kind men unattractive? I've been single my whole life. I'm 26. I've got plenty of women who, let's just say, they friend zone me. They never like me back. It's not that I don't try, and I just never get matches on dating apps. According to my female friend, I need to be a bit more of an a hole because I'm too kind, and that's not fun. Nice guy,
How does that come through
is
on a
that
dating app, do you
true?
think?
So it's probably got a bunch of pictures of him being a beta or a cuck. So I think that
Hmm.
I can tell you right now that most people who say they're nice guys are usually just liars. So what they do is they will
Yeah.
pretend to be friends with you and
Yeah.
to try and get a shot with you. They will they compliment everyone. So if you tell
It's
everyone they're
manipulative,
beautiful,
basically.
it means nothing. Right. So there's this great scene in a movie that I forget the name of, but this guy gets another guy to help him. He goes, "You got to help me get the girl and I'll help you do your grades." Right. And the guy, of course, then the girl falls in love with the other guy and he's like, "But I'm in love with her." He goes, "How are you in love with her if you never talked to her?" He goes, "Well, listen, we just need to get into a tiny room together, scream at each other for a while and work some things out. And then I think me and her could be like a really great couple." And you
Hmm.
realize that the friend zone guy is crazy, right? And that's really the truth. It's that nice guys make these excuses of like, I want her to like me for me. I don't want to change for her. This is who I am. But everything you do is designed around getting a girl. It's just a technique that doesn't work. And you're like, well, I don't want to change what I'm doing. And what she's saying, and this is the problem, is it's very hard to explain the difference between confidence and a-hole. It just is. It's very hard to explain the difference. And this is why
So is she attracted to men that are liars, as you're saying? Manipulative nice guys? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying, yeah, that women do not like nice guys. What they like is a bad boy. And that's what the girl even
But
told
isn't this
him.
a woman who's writing this?
No, it's a guy.
Oh, it's a guy's. Okay, I misunderstood. Okay, got it. Got it.
This is a guy
Yeah.
talking about all of this. And he's
Yeah.
like, never had a girlfriend. My female friend
Right.
told me I'm too kind and I need to be more of a
Right.
bad boy.
Okay.
So
Okay.
he's like, oh, I thought bad boys were only attractive in middle school or high school. What a dummy.
Yeah. Well,
That's not true. It never goes out of fashion. So
no. It's not. It's
here's
not the
the
fact that they're bad that it attracts a woman. It's the fact that it's a very masculine, attractive thing for a guy to go after what he wants and be direct about it. Women are very attracted
It's
to
a
that.
it's a form of confidence. So
Yeah.
we want what we can't have, right? Like, so if one of my kids has three toys in front of them and they're playing with toy number one, another kid comes in and plays with toy number two, suddenly the first kid wants toy number two.
Yeah.
They don't want it until someone else has it. It's the same
Right.
reason that when you're in a relationship, suddenly a ton of women are interested in you. You become more attractive. So what he's doing on this is one that I can answer on a very technical level. Whenever you give comfort or friendship before attraction, you get the friend zone. That's the formula for the friend zone. So you have to be sexual and flirtatious before you're a friend. He's making the common mistake of, I will demonstrate that I would be a good boyfriend rather than I will demonstrate that I would be a great lover. You just have to
Also, the trouble
switch
with that
over.
is that he's always, when he's with some girl, he's always thinking about how he could be nice and how he can get into her pants. What can he say to her that'll make her want to have sex with him? It's awful, really, because I used to be that way sometimes too.
Yeah,
I
yeah, me
remember
too.
that.
You just have to switch
Yeah.
it around. And if
Yeah.
you were just, here's the secret, just be honest. So when I started being honest with women, I would just say, girls would say, because later on, when I was, maybe 7 or 8 years later, after I just want to be friends with guys, I'm only friends with guys thing, I said, a girl would be like, I want to be friends with you. I said, listen, we can be friends, but you have to understand that I want to sleep with you. I will hang out with you. I will be your friend. But when we go out drinking, I will try to sleep with you. You can always say no, and I will always stop. You're the brakes, I'm the gas. And that became our relationship, right? And of course we hooked up because I'd established up front the
You're
ground.
honest about your desires.
It turns out,
And-
and it wasn't like, that's all, and it's crazy, but that's really the solution to and you have to say it at the beginning. Someone says, oh, I just want to be friends with you. That's fine. But understand
Well,
that I
if you
want to
don't
be
say at the
more
beginning, let's say you're trying to convert, like you're this guy and he's got these friends, supposed friends. They're not friends, by the way, at all. The friend zone is ridiculous because they're not friends. They're using you because you're
No, they're
nice. They're not your
jailers.
friends. Yeah. So you could just reset at that point. You could say, you know what, I thought about this and I don't really want to be just friends. I want to be lovers. So that's what I want to do. So if you don't want to do that, then maybe we shouldn't be together. We shouldn't get together anymore. That's what I would do. I'd get rid of all that because what happens, and I talk about this a lot, there's like your life is a garden, you've got all these plants. It's like a flower bed. You've got all these plants. You've got this big old weed in the middle, which is this woman you're trying to sleep with who's your friend. You got to get rid of that weed, pull it out, throw it out. Now there's a space for some other woman to come in and you have a real relationship with. You can't possibly get into the right relationship when you're trying to attach with this friend. So you should just tell her you don't want to be friends anymore. You either want to be lovers or you don't want to see her again. That's it. And then that'll create room for somebody new. Plus you get a lot of confidence because you actually said what you want. And the more you practice saying what you want, the better at it you get. The more you say what you want and show what you want, the more attractive you are to women because women love a guy who goes after what he wants. It's like the essence of masculinity.
Yeah, I think that it's the same problem you have when you're in like a halfway decent relationship where you don't want to get married, you don't want to break up because you're getting half your needs met.
Like the
And
first question we had.
it creates a laziness in you because you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm not motivated enough to get a girlfriend because I'm getting half of what I want. Like I'm
Yeah.
not starving, I'm just hungry. And that's the problem is that when you're truly starving, right? When the only way you can have an O,
Hmm.
right? You cut pornography out of your life, you're not allowed to touch yourself, you get rid of these friend zone girls, then you suddenly will become much more, you'll become a man. It activates the man inside of you. And it's a really simple way to do it. But the answer to the question is women are not interested in nice guys. It's what nice guy is just a fancy name for weakness because you will
Yeah.
accept people giving you what you don't want and just take it. That's not
Well,
nice. That's
so you're always going to be trying to manipulate her, and that's a bad place to be. So practice being direct, practice being honest, practice getting somebody upset that having a conversation that you've been putting off, have it now, so she can be upset. It's fine. And the more you practice, the better at it you get. Pretty soon, your life is clear of all these kinds of unpleasant conversations because you're direct right at the beginning, like you said. And when you're direct at the very beginning, you don't have any unpleasant conversations anymore. It's really nice, but you got to get them out of the way because you have to learn to be direct. You have to learn to say what you want and don't want and be clear about it. This is the practice that you need to learn. So I have one here. Um, my wife, she's in her late 20s. I'm in my early 30s. We've been together for 7 years. Don't have kids. We're great friends. We love, care, and trust each other. But somehow we kind of got a house and we started sort of separating. Like I'd be in this part of the house, she'd be in that part of the house. And I guess what happens is we sort of started prioritizing, being with our friends, our own friends. For me, it was like playing computer games and things. For her, it was her friends. We started moving apart. And so she said that she loves me, and we had a discussion, but she says she doesn't feel attracted to me anymore after all this. And she says, well, I don't even think there's a way to reignite the spark. Okay, so now the ball's in my court. What do I do to revive our intimacy? I really want to keep our relationship. I'll do whatever it takes. I feel very attracted to her, and I don't know what to do to reignite things and bring things back.
if he really is willing to do anything, then he can save this. So what you have to there's a couple of things you have to make some dramatic changes because it sounds like everything he does is lame and you have to stop doing that. So the real answer, right, is to disappear for a while. It sounds like you're not seeing each other anyways. You may have a sixth sense situation. Like maybe he's actually dead and doesn't know it. Like that's what it sounds like, the sixth sense where you
They
think your
haven't had sex
relationship.
for 10 months, by the way.
Yeah. So he might it's possible. Is he a psychologist? Is it possible that an ex-patient killed him and he doesn't realize it? A classic sixth
I
sense
saw a movie
situation.
like that once.
So what we have here is exactly he has first of all, he shouldn't have put up with it for 10 months, right? Like he let the relationship
Right.
die. What you have to do is to escape, he's in the friend zone. You have to do a couple of things. The first is you have to break rapport, which means you have to disappear. You've already kind of done that. So you want her to not see you for a while so that you can do a change. And when she sees you, you look different. Now, the next thing you want to do is go to the gym and turn it up to 11. You want to make a dramatic change. And in 30 days, you can drop 10 or 20 pounds, especially if you haven't done anything in a long time. You can put on a couple of pounds. You can make a really big change. You're not going to get cut that fast, but you can make a big enough change. And she's going to go, what's happening? So the first thing you want to do is create a dramatic physical change because you're trying to reignite the physical intimacy. What this will do is because you will look like a different person. And usually, right, when do women start going to the gym all the time? Right before or after a divorce. So women associate physical change with you've got someone else in your life. So you're planting a seed. You're becoming more attractive and you're planting the seed that maybe you've got another woman in your life. The second thing is all of these hobbies that you do, take them out of the house. Don't play video games in the house. What you need to do is go out
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then say things that are dual meaning, which is, oh, I'm going over to a friend's house. They're going to cook me dinner. This is one of those Jedi things you can say because men never cook each other dinner. So she'll assume it's another woman, but you're not going to say that because you don't want to tell her that you're cheating on her. You just want to plant the possibility that other women are interested in you. Um, because he's waited so long. I talk about this all the time, right? Sending little backfires to prevent this from happening. I all the time. So I was with my wife at the gym the other day and I said to her, I go, listen, I'm really uncomfortable. That girl won't stop looking at me. And I said, I want you to watch what she does. And of course, then the woman comes over and uses a machine near me. It's not a very big gym. So the odds of
So
that
now
happening,
your wife interprets everything this woman does as that she wants
yeah,
to.
it's called a jealousy plot line. You plant it. And I have
Hmm?
no idea if the woman's interested in me or not, right? She's
No,
there training with her
there's no
husband.
signal or anything. You just made it up. Could be you just made it all up. Of course.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's a Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah.
You
Well.
don't check, right? But you plant that seed, and that's what you want to do is let her know that
Okay.
other women are interested in you, and you want to slowly build up to this, and then this only takes like this is like
Get a haircut, different
4 weeks.
haircut.
Yeah, change
Maybe
how
get
you
us some
dress.
new clothes, a different
Yeah, do
look, as
all of
if
the things that you would do.
yeah.
Do everything you would do if you got divorced and you had to get a new girlfriend, right? This is what you would do anyways. You're just doing it now.
Right.
Then what
Right.
you do is you want to start planting enough seeds that you want her to feel what it's like to be divorced, to make sure that it's what she wants. So she needs to see that other women are interested in you, that you're more attractive, and that what it feels like to be alone, not in a negative way. You're not trying to hurt her, but
Hmm.
absence is where you can rekindle a spark. If there's any spark left, if you keep blowing on it,
Right.
you'll blow it out. But if you back away, it has the chance to reignite. And I would look
Right.
back and see what were you like before? Because it sounds like he's gotten lazy. I have a feeling he's put on weight, playing video games all
Most
the
of
time.
us do.
So
Yes.
what you want to do is put all of these things in place. And it's a very practical set of steps, right? She
Yeah.
hasn't
Very
broken up with you. You've just fallen into the friend zone with each other, which is very recoverable. And
salvageable. I agree with you.
if
It's very
she starts
salvageable.
to see that she has to first of all believe that she could really lose you. So you have to not make an ultimatum, but demonstrate that other women are interested in you, and that will make
But
her
it's what
go,
you do. It's nothing what you said. It's completely
yeah.
what you do. That's the whole point. So she reaches that
And then
conclusion.
you could bring things to a head in 6 to 8 weeks, right? Give it enough time for your body, for her to be like, something's different.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then you sit her down for a dog and go, listen, I thought about what you said a little while ago, and the last thing I would want to do is ever do something to belittle you or embarrass you or make you feel bad. But a couple of women have been flirting with me. I haven't flirted back, but I just
Yeah.
want you. And what you're doing now, you're creating an ultimatum, but without saying ultimatum, right? This just puts a little more pressure on her. You got to
Yeah.
wait to do this long until the other things are there and it's kind of boiling.
The other thing's been built,
You-
and now it's like the logical thing. Uh-oh, I'm going to lose him. Some other woman
Yeah,
wants him.
you
Now
build
she
up
wants
to
him.
it. You go,
So that creates desire again.
and you're kind of saying, I respect you. I would never do something to hurt you. But if our relationship is over, then I want to let you go. So the other thing you can say is like, oh, I would never want to hold you back from,
It's not fair to you.
yeah,
It's not fair to you, and I wouldn't ever do that to you.
when you start saying things like that, people really freak out because what she wants is the status quo. And you have to let her know there's two options. We're either together or not together. And
Yeah.
it's his fault. Like, it sounds
Yeah,
like
it
it's
is his fault.
100% his fault. He's really dropped the ball.
Well,
So
when people get separate, they get into a place and they get sort of separate lives in their house. Especially now, he's got into computer games, maybe porn, who knows. She got into her things. It's really a
So-
tough situation.
what you can do, I'll give you one other thing. So I like video games too. I play video games because it's something I can do for like a 20-minute block here and there. I can't even imagine like doing an 8-hour session, but like after I finish work at 2 in the morning, no one's awake, I can play for 20 minutes. Or no, not even, I don't think I could ever do an hour. But what I do is I get games that I can play with her. So there's games, my wife likes horror movies. And there are some video games that are choose your own adventure horror movies.
Okay.
And you
That's
don't
cool.
use a lot of buttons. So you just do walk around and you'll push like investigate.
cool.
There's like one button. And we played this one where you start off in your set of twin sisters and they always die because it's the prologue. But my wife, of course, that killed the twins. I go, I can't believe you killed those girls. They seem so nice. Like she's freaking
sounds
out.
fun.
Like it really builds a lot of tension. So we're playing a
Okay.
new one now that is, I can't play it by myself. It's too scary for me. So we have to play it together. And we're playing one. They have a new one where I have to do a lot. It's a lot of buttons, so I do the controlling, right? If it's like a real video game where you have to like use all the buttons and
Yeah.
I do it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't play without you. My kids came in the room and they're screaming. They're like, because his wife, you're playing a guy and he's at a cabin in the woods, and then the wife disappears and he has a flashlight and the batteries die and he's like running and looking for it. I could never play that by myself. Like even talking about it, I'm getting nervous. So if you really want to play games, find a way to do something that is together. Because I don't like horror movies. My wife does. And it's always strange to me because there's this balance of like you get a relationship and then your wife is your only friend, or you go the other direction where you maintain all of your other friendships and then your relationship with your wife
You're
sucks.
never home. Then you're never home.
So they don't have any
Yeah,
kids. So he
you have to
should be able
maintain friendships. So, you know, you got your buddies Friday, the Wednesday's poker night, Saturday, you know, then you might as well
have
not
2
be
nights
together.
with the boys
So,
and 5 nights with her. And
yeah,
I would do the other thing I would do is
that's reasonable.
another thing you can do is always leave on a high note. This is really important. If you've ever, there's an amazing episode of Seinfeld where whenever he's at a meeting, George, if he says
Yeah.
something really funny and everyone laughs, he goes, "Gotta go," and he walks right out of the
I
meeting.
remember that. That was cool.
That's
It's a great
one
idea.
of the best scientific trainings of that technique, even though it's very old, like 30 years ago. So
Yeah.
whenever you're talking to her, don't put pressure on her. Don't be like, "Oh, I miss you so much." None of that stuff. Just
No.
talk to her like
No,
it's
no.
not a big deal. Tell a joke. As soon as she laughs, walk away. This will remind her of the good part of you, because most people, a conversation starts slow, gets to a high point, and then goes down. Most people stay until it dies naturally, and that means
Right.
they go, "Oh, it's finished." So they never
And
have
that's the part people remember. They remember the last part.
the end.
So you're leaving on a bad note, basically, when it's kind of died down. That's what they
Leave on a
remember.
cliffhanger.
Yeah,
So
leave
you-
on a cliffhanger.
cliffhanger,
I
and
like
then-
your ideas. I think your ideas are great. Okay. But I have a different idea. But do
Wanna
you have
hear it.
any other tips for you, or should I share mine?
No, I think the question is, and I think, I'm thinking about the serotonin thing we talk about is like, can you
Oxytocin.
oxytocin versus serotonin, right? Yeah, can you is it that she just doesn't like the physical, like it sounds like, are you still friends is my question, right?
Okay. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
So
will
I
she
will tell you
cuddle
what
with cuddle?
Okay. Yeah. So that's exactly right. Will she cuddle with you? Will she still do that? If you asked her to, would she do that? Let's just sit on the couch and cuddle together, no sex, just cuddle. Will you be willing to do that? So I found that any relationship can be reignited and saved without any of the. I'm not saying what you said is bad or wrong, because I think it's very, very good. But the direct route is to ignite this desire in each other that is through building up oxytocin, through oxytocin building activities. Oxytocin is the hormone that builds up when we love somebody and we want them. It's not just sexual. It could be built up around your pet or your children or your other things. But when it's a sexual component to it, it's very, very strong, and it builds when you are in a situation with somebody that's intimate without having ejaculatory sex, just to be very clear. So if she get her to cuddle, like let's say 50 minutes, let's start over again, honey. Let's do 50 minutes tonight. Or, maybe they watch TV together. Instead of being on separate chairs, they cuddle together on one side of the couch. After a few weeks of this, the desire gets rekindled again. If it can be done at all, it can be done then. And I have never found any couple that did this who didn't get back together again.
Yeah,
So-
the question is if they'll do it. So
Right.
that's my question of how distant they
Well,
are.
he said he'll do anything, so it's up to her.
Well,
He has to convince her to
That's
do
what I
it.
mean. So maybe he said something like, and I want to fire this at you because I've been thinking about this, is like, you know what? I have an idea. Give me, how many days do you think you need? 7, 5?
You need about 20 days, really, but for the whole thing. But
Well,
it
that's-
starts feeling really good after a week, I would say.
So let's say, give me 7 days. Let's
Right.
just try something without, let's make an agreement. We're not going to be intimate together for 7 days. We're not even going to try,
Right.
but we
Right.
are going to see if we still have a connection to it. And then you do the cuddling. So maybe you phrase it that way. I'm just thinking about it
Right.
because it's just a question, because there's a certain point at which a person goes, I'm not doing that. Right. And
Yeah.
it doesn't sound like it's that far because she wants to keep living together, and you go, okay. But here's the thing I want to fire at you. I was thinking about this, is that one of the things you can do is like watch a movie together that will trigger that type of cuddling with her, whether it's a romantic comedy, like you watch Sleepless in Seattle,
Mhm.
and ignore the stalking elements, or you watch like a horror movie that causes them to jump into your arms. There's
So
Other things
the
that
science
trigger-
of it says for a woman that's premenopause, hasn't had menopause yet, if you watch a scary movie together and she gets scared, that she also gets aroused. It's a fact that was discovered
Problem
by
is,
this
I've
scientist.
never seen a movie with my wife where I was less scared than her. So, I have never tried that
Well,
one.
yeah. So you have to show mastery in this, and the woman is scared, and it's not just a grabbing. It's an effect. It could be on a roller coaster. It could be a date where you go to the shooting range, and she has never fired a gun before, but you
Yeah.
have. All sorts of things where you go on a date, which we call this the passion trigger. It was discovered by Dolph Zillman. Dr. Zillman is very, very famous. I think he's still alive. So that's a good idea, but you don't need it. If you just can get her to agree, and if we don't feel that for each other, then we'll split up, but let's give it our best shot. I would really love it if you would do me that favor. And if she does it, I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, it only is a question of if she's willing to do it,
Yeah.
and you're all good. So those are a couple
Yeah.
ways to get her to be willing. So that's great. I've got one for you that's very interesting.
Okay.
So I married. This guy's married to a second wife. They've got 3 kids together, that are from her previous relationship. So he's a stepdad to 3 kids.
Hmm.
His second wife been together 5 years, and then his ex-wife, after the divorce, full cold shoulder. So they got divorced he got divorced 5 years ago. So I guess he got the divorce and new marriage were very close to each other, or the new relationship. There's a very small window of less than a year. And then she moves 2 hours away and doesn't talk to him that often. I mean, doesn't talk to him again. Like, he's messaging her on
The ex moves 2 hours away, never talks to him again. Okay.
and then he just found out that his ex has married his best friend from college. He's like, "Oh, I didn't even I love it, right?"
Okay.
And he's like,
All right.
"I'm really upset. It's killing me."
Come on now.
So
Come on.
he's like, saying all these different things, like, everyone knows that we're best friends. He said he would always be my friend. He'd say he's my always. And it's like they're adding a lot of like phrases that I consider have gay undertones. Like, he said he'd be my always. My best friend from college. We're still best friends. We've fallen apart, but he's never said that to me. Right? We're really close.
I would never say that to another man, personally. I don't. It's like
Yeah,
not
that's
this
why it's kind of weird.
communication
Everyone
style.
says everyone says he's my best friend. It's so weird. Like, that's such a strange phrase.
That's
for
so
people.
weird.
And these
That's
are
so
people in
weird.
mid and late 30s.
I would have to assume he's not his best friend, okay, because otherwise he wouldn't say that. So here's what my stand on it is that even if you don't feel it inside, you have to pretend to be thrilled for your friend, who's supposedly your best friend, because your friend met the love of his life. Just because it's your ex, be thrilled for her too. You shared a life together before. Don't you want the best for her? Why not? And so you should always want the best for people. And if you don't, pretend that you do.
So,
And that's all there is to it.
well, that's not what this guy did. So he went crazy. He went to visit his best friend in the other city like 6 months ago. He brings his new wife with him. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to try and see my ex-wife too," which is insane. And he goes, the best friend's like, "Yeah, I'm dating someone new." And he goes, "Who is it?" He goes, "Your ex-wife." And I go crazy. And I go, "What the F?" And he's like, "You broke up." He goes, "You divorced her, you broke her heart, and I didn't start dating her for 2 years." Followed all the
Totally
rules.
fair.
All the bro
Totally
code.
fair. More than
Sounds
fair.
like, and then he goes, spends the weekend getting absolutely drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "I feel betrayed." This person doesn't know what the word betray means. I've had a real betrayal. Like, this is unbelievable. This is someone who's obviously never had anything bad happen in their lives.
Yeah.
And I went back home,
Yeah.
and I'm distant from my wife and kids because I'm hurting so much. I had a huge fight with my wife, and then she accused me of cheating. And I finally told her that I'm upset because my ex and my best friend, and she scoffed. That's the best use of scoff I've ever read. Like, that's
Yeah.
That's when
I
you
can
should
picture it.
definitely stop, because that's an unbelievable thing to say. It's someone
I can picture that.
Someone I broke up with 6
Yeah.
years ago.
I thought I married a man. I found out I married an immature boy. Okay.
Then she goes, "I've known about them forever because they post on social media together." That's amazing. This new wife is killing it right now. The new wife is so far winning this entire question, right?
Yeah.
Because
What
I flew into
WTF,
Rome.
man? I've been knowing that for a long time. What's
Yeah,
the big
well,
news?
he goes,
What's the
"You
big
don't look
whoop?
at your best friend's Instagram? He's been posting pictures with her for 2 years." That's amazing.
Oh, but it's his bestie.
Yeah.
One and only. What was the expression he said about his friend?
Listen to this. Here's even better. This guy is he's such a beta. "I flew into a rage and we fought for hours. She betrayed me by not telling me the entire time that she knew. She didn't say anything when I mentioned my best friend not returning my calls or messages." Well, it's not her place. It's not her business at all.
Right.
"I couldn't go to sleep. before work, and after work and then I went home from work and I just stayed at my parents' house.
Hmm. That's where he should. He still belongs there. He should be living in his parents already. He's not
Exactly.
grown up.
So
Hasn't grown
when I
up.
came home, she accused me of still being in love with my ex and said I called her stupid and said she wouldn't understand because she doesn't have any friends.
Oh my
Um,
God, that's horrible.
Feels like the nuclear button. Like that's
Well,
unbelievable. So
so I want to just
I said,
mention
I only
here,
care
Jonathan.
because it's my ex. I only care because it's my best friend. I wouldn't care if it was anyone else.
No. So
And it's
so
still my marriage feels like a lot. It goes on. This person goes on
oh
for
yeah.
my marriage feels like
Well,
a
here's
lie.
the problem. The problem is that we have these primitive lizard monkey brains that produce these feelings that are very, very deep, and we get very angry, we get upset, we get jealous. But it doesn't mean that we should be acting on the monkey brain just because we feel jealous and upset. Okay, understandable. You can't put someone down. Your monkey brain is making you feel upset. Your best friend and your ex have hooked up. You can't, put that, say, oh, I don't feel bad about it. If you do, you feel bad about it. But it doesn't mean you should act on it. That's the point. There's a lot of emotions that we have because of our primitive brains that we shouldn't be acting on. We shouldn't even be telling anyone about it because they'll just pass and go away. And it's like, you deal with it. You go, I feel really weirdly jealous that my best friend is together with my ex-wife. It's so weird how jealous I feel. I feel so angry about it. And yet I know that I should be happy for my best friend and my ex-wife. So I'm not going to say anything to them. I'm going to be really happy when I'm around my best friend and congratulate him. And I'm going to be thrilled for him, even inside if I don't feel that way. That's how you should handle it. You shouldn't necessarily go with your emotions just because that's how you feel. That's ridiculous.
So it sounds like this guy, right? Like he's been trying to stay in touch with the ex-wife the whole time. So
Yeah.
let's say that he actually wants the best for her. Like let's say he actually is a person who wants his ex-wife to have a happy life. Wouldn't you want her to be with someone that you know for sure is awesome?
Yeah. And plus your friend, if he's happy, you're happy.
That's
If
what
your
I
best
mean.
friend
Like
is happy, sure.
it's not like you have kids with her and all of that stuff in the mix, which would
Right.
make it more complicated, but
Right.
I love that
But
like
you can't help how you feel. You can't help how you feel, but you can help what you act on. You don't
yeah.
act on that. That's all.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
perfect.
he
It's so
confessed to
childish to
not
act on
confess these
it.
feelings. Like and it's
Well, that's
I just
that's a
think it's
little weird.
also like there's something wrong with you because every decision he's made has been a bad one in a row. He's made a series of bad mistakes. So one of my relatives is a defense attorney, and here's one of the advice he gives. He goes, never commit two crimes at the same time. He goes, if you have someone in the trunk, don't speed. He goes, when you get in trouble is when you get in trouble
Remember
is
that
when you
next time.
mix together. And he's done so many defense cases. He goes, this is where things start to go bad, is where you're doing
Yeah.
multiple things wrong because
Okay.
then they can all tumble into each other. And now, right? So it's like, that's what's happened here is that this guy has done a series of bad things in a row, which is like, first you accuse your wife of betraying you, then you go sleep at your parents' house, then you call her stupid. And I go, well, that seems pretty bad. And then you are
Then you
like,
say you have no friends. That was the other thing. You have no friends.
yeah. I mean, I thought calling your wife stupid is the worst thing you can do, and then it turned out I was wrong because he thought of something worse. But, I
Nobody
mean,
likes you.
yeah,
You're not
and
likable.
this person, yeah, how did you trick two women into marrying you? It's unbelievable.
There was watching a show called The Tourist. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a newer show on Netflix, and it's a good sort of relationship, sort of like this woman has a low self-esteem and she's overweight, and the guy, and he says to her at some point, he goes, no one's going to be attracted to you if you break up with me. I mean, that's kind of the same thing. Like no one likes you. So again, the point is you have feelings. You can't control the feelings. You can control your behavior. And so your behavior is very poor here, and you need to conceal it and cover it up and not behave that way. And that's all. So I had a one that came on across here that I thought was pretty interesting. Similar sort of thing. Like he says, I accidentally saw an old nude of my girlfriend on Snapchat. We've been together for 2 years. So we have each other's phone codes, and we both leave our phones lying around, and we're always handing them off to each other and, whatever. So I happened to notice, she left her phone behind. Again, we look at each other's phones, and there's a picture, a nude picture So I thought, this isn't right. What's going on here? So one was from a year ago, one was from 3 years ago, one was before we met. I don't really have an issue with it
Wait,
necessarily, but it doesn't seem like a good thing to do, and I don't know what to do.
sorry, is it the same person in all three pictures?
It's his girlfriend.
Sorry, his girlfriend in her phone, she has pictures of herself
She has
naked or
pictures of herself
Ah, I
over
thought she
3 or 4 years, a number of nude pictures that she has kept on her phone.
she's sending them to people or she's just taking them.
He doesn't think she's sending to people, but he doesn't really know.
Yeah, I don't understand what the
He says, I can't accuse her of cheating. I
so
don't think
she
that's
in
right.
your post, sometimes you take naked pictures of yourself and don't send them to anyone. Yeah, that's not a crime. You know what
Maybe
I
I
mean?
should start doing that. I hadn't thought of that. It might be a
People,
good idea.
I don't know why he would care. That's what I'm trying to get
I don't know.
here.
I don't understand why I'd care. I don't understand either. Um, he married a woman that will show a nude picture of herself to somebody. Okay, all right. Well, she
Oh,
probably knew that.
but he didn't.
I mean,
Who she? I thought you said she's not showing it to anyone. She's just taking it for herself.
yeah, he saw the pictures on her phone, but apparently this was even before they met. Maybe she sent them to people before they met.
But maybe
That's
she
all
doesn't.
right. Yeah,
Maybe she's keeping a record. Like maybe she's checking for
okay, I'm
breast.
going to give this guy credit. Okay, he gets good credit because he didn't say anything to her yet. He didn't say anything, and he
Don't say
says, "I'm
anything
not
to her.
about to accuse her of cheating. I'm not going to say anything. I don't know, but what should I do? What should I think?" And I appreciate that. He didn't act emotionally like
I have
the
some
last guy
questions for
did.
you because he said some of the pictures are like 3 and 4 years old. He's been with this girl for years, and this is the first time he's noticed a picture that's been on the phone for 4 years.
Yeah,
That's very.
maybe
That's,
she wants him to see them, huh?
yeah, that's the other thing. Why is he complaining? It sounds legit. He's allowed to look.
Sounds cool.
She's like, I've been waiting for you to find that picture. I put the picture for you 4 years ago. It took you that
That
long to
sounds like a
find.
lot of fun to me. That sounds fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what
What's the
he's.
complaint?
Sounds awesome. I
Jeez,
have no complaints about this. Like, yeah, that's a
I
cool.
don't know, man.
And now I
People
like
people will
it.
find something to complain about no matter what, right?
Yeah. All right, I've got a news story for you that I want to talk about. I want to
Okay.
get your thoughts about this. Okay. Somebody who is a well-known streamer, like a Twitch streamer, right, does video games and stuff, switched tabs on a screen and accidentally showed that he was subscribed to a deep fake adult website that had fake dirty videos of female streamers, so people in his industry, not people he actually knew personally, right? Because you don't know
Okay.
everyone.
Okay, got it.
And so some people got really upset. Like someone was like, "Hey, I can't. My girlfriend is one of the people on that site." And the guy's like, "Yeah, but
So
I didn't
just
look."
to be clear, just so we understand, because some people don't necessarily know what we're talking about. But so a deep fake, these video sites have these different, I guess they're real women in them, but they're AI generated videos of these same women
They
doing
take a.
things, sexual things, I
I
suppose.
think they take a real video and then stick someone else's head on it, a
Like
famous person's head on the body.
sampling something, kind of like a DJ does. They sample and then
They just
the
yeah,
AI
you just
can
put someone else's head on the body,
sure
and
and whatever. Okay.
so my question for you is, okay, people got really upset, and my wife and I were like on the same page. I talked to my wife about it. I told her, how would you feel if I did that? And she goes, yeah, why would I care? That sounds like because to us, it's 1 degree of separation from imagination. I didn't look at actual dirty videos.
I don't
of
get
you.
the bad part about it. I don't even understand
Okay.
what's so bad about it.
Because it's not, yeah, the people are like, well, that girl never chose to make a dirty video, so yada yada. Like, yeah, but it's
Oh.
the same thing as if you just to me, it's one step from but it's the
So
same
now
thing.
we're talking about the content. We're talking about the idea of deep fakes, of having a video,
But isn't
a
it the same as
sexually
if
explicit
yeah.
video.
So for the guy, it's hard for me to see what's the difference between if I think about a girl.
Well, let's say he wrote an erotic
myself.
story about somebody.
Yeah,
Let's say I write an erotic story about Kamala Harris, just to say something totally crazy.
You're killing me here.
She's not going to know
Okay.
about it. She doesn't get hurt. Doesn't affect her at all.
Yeah.
She has nothing to do with it. And in the U.S., I have a freedom of speech where I can do that. I think it's okay, but I think it's bad that the guy had that tab open. That's irresponsible and stupid.
Yeah.
But
I think the person who made the website is in the wrong. Like I get that. That's wrong to make videos of people without their permission. All of that I get with. But the person who's looking at it, it's like, well, to me, it's the same thing as them just imagining it. Right. And is
here's
that
what's
a crime
happening in
too?
this country and this world. There are many people that want to restrict your right to say or do anything in order so they can stay in power and enforce their their rules and edicts, as we saw in 2020. And so what they're doing is they use every excuse to try to gin up panic in the population to get support for very, very bad things that they want to do, right? It's classic. It's been done forever. So now they say, oh, AI, deep fakes is so bad. You're going to be fooled. You're going to see the fake pictures of the president, or you're going to get a phone call from somebody like they're going to say there's somebody and they're not. And you're going so we have to control everything that you do and everything with AI and every computer program and no more anonymity and all these things so that you don't get, fooled. So they're using this to pass draconian laws against AI that are ridiculous and I think are terrible, wrong. And, of course, there's a new technology. There's going to be all kinds of abuses. Of course, everything that's new always turns into something that has to do with sex. So what? Let it go. Let's see what happens. We certainly don't need new laws. We don't need to get all panicky about something like this. That's my thought.
Yeah, so he made one of those videos where he's sitting in front of the camera with his wife crying behind him. So I made my wife watch that with me.
Oh no.
And she was
So
like,
sad.
she goes, why is the wife crying? My wife is like, why would I care what you do in your imagination? So we were on the same wavelength. She was like, I go, if I got caught doing this, would you sit next to me crying? She goes, no way. You got
kind of your business. You're an adult male. It's your business what you think about.
Yeah, she was like,
nobody's.
It's like not like cheating. I mean, maybe the wife didn't know he looked at adult material.
You remember Jimmy Carter's interview at Playboy in the 70s when they said, what have you sinned? And he says, I felt lust in my heart. That was his sin. That's okay.
And that's the thing. So yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting one again about a bunch of confessions, because then he went and did this huge confession, had to donate a bunch of money to a charity and like not work for 6 months. And I was like, what are you doing?
No, that's too bad.
As your consumer, I don't care, because there's so many worse things that other people have done on the spectrum of, I looked at drawings of someone. It's like not that big a deal to me, but yeah, I thought it was really interesting about it turning into a confession.
I've got a news story and I've got a story that sort of relates to that. The news story is that there's this was in one of the UK newspapers. Supposedly there's an epidemic of oropharyngeal cancer, which is a throat cancer, due to, they think, HPV virus caused by deep throating, okay? That's the story. Supposedly, over the past 2 decades, they quote Dr. Mahana, there's been a rapid increase in throat cancer, where some people have called it an epidemic due to the large rise in a specific type called oropharyngeal cancer, which supposedly comes from this practice. So
who's getting it?
Now, what's that?
Sorry, so people who
are receiving that are getting throat cancer, supposedly, especially with multiple partners.
From doing BJs, is that what we're saying? You give someone BJ?
Yeah, correct.
Do you remember when Michael Douglas said he got throat cancer and he said it was because he went down on a woman?
That's not very nice, because he had a horrible cancer. It was terrible.
But that's what he said. He said that.
He did say that. He did say that. Maybe that's HPV. I mean, it could be. HPV is everybody has HPV already. Pretty much everybody.
That's what I was
of various kinds.
If that's where I thought the story was going, was that from going down on women. So that's why I was about to ask all about that. But you're saying it's from going down.
They actually mean, I believe that they mean the other people going down on men. I think that's what they mean.
No, that's what I'm asking. Okay.
Okay.
And you said specifically from deep throating?
Yeah, that's what they're implying. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. So that's not something I've ever experienced.
I don't know anything about it either, but except I studied the health aspects of human papillomavirus.
What I mean is, does how far it go in, like it gets it past your defenses or whatever? Like it gets past.
I think so. And I think the more often you do it, I think there's like a mucosal defenses that can get kind of worn down. There can sort of be micro injuries that can take place, and that could lay the stage for these viruses to turn into cancer.
To use no form of protection when they're doing that kind of stuff. We talked about this last week. I was like, lay down some saran wrap. Very rarely do people put on protection before doing, like,
because you're not going to get pregnant. You're not going to get a woman pregnant that way. So.
Yeah, my mouth can't.
But there's viruses, so that's definitely a concern.
So there's a really interesting thing I heard from someone that I look up to, and he got a piece of advice from his dad. And his dad was like, listen, you can get wild out there with 100 women, and 99 times out of 100, it's going to be great. There's going to be no negative consequences. But 1 out of 100, something's going to happen. We've seen those incidents lately where a guy loses his entire career because of an accusation, and it turns out the woman had made specifically targeted to take his money, and it all came out, and she lost in the lawsuit. That just happened. That's happened to a few people lately. You never, or she can get pregnant on purpose, or there's all these things. And the guy also can turn out to be a crazy guy, right? So there's, you have, it's called the law of big numbers, right? This is why casinos have nice lights. Over a long enough timeline, the casino always wins all the money. Over a long enough timeline, eventually things catch up with you. So
Right.
what you're playing a game with odds. Every time you sleep with a new person and you, like, I had a friend who never wore protection. Okay. Never wore protection. And he was like, and I was like, hey, I've got an extra one. You should take one of mine. And he like would never do it. He's like, I don't like how it feels, da da da.
Right.
Guess what? He died of AIDS like 2
Oh
years
man.
ago.
Sure.
And it's like hard to feel bad for him because cause and effect, right? I also was shocked that he never had a test. Like I get it. I get an AIDS test every couple of years. So for different things, you have to get them here where I live. Like whenever you have certain hospitals, when you have a new baby, you both have to get one. It's just part of the rules.
I see. I've never gotten one. Never had one.
So and that's just, I'm like, whatever. Because my favorite 4 words in the English language are "you don't have AIDS." There's nothing nicer you can say to me. That's my favorite thing to hear. If anything everyone's said to me, it's such a good thing to hear. So I've probably had 10 or 12 tests in my life of it. And I couldn't believe, right? So I was like so shocked, but it's like when you engage in a risky behavior, there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate. But the more you gamble, the more eventually things catch up with you. So whether this specific thing is true or not, it does make, like, you're adding in, there's got to be other stuff about that particular act, right? Because it's a more extreme version, right?
I didn't, I think it is, and I don't think it's I don't think it was a big thing, 40 years ago. I think it's a bigger thing now because everybody watches it so much in porn. There's a lot of more extreme activities that
Yeah, everyone wants to
people
go
didn't
off.
generally practice before that they're now into, like in the mainstream, that have become more mainstream, like anal or whatever. There's just
Yeah. So
so
the best thing I can say is that the more you have to, there's two approaches. Number one is you have to have a really big line between fantasy and reality.
right.
So for
Yeah, you
me,
don't have to play. You don't have to enact everything in
I
reality
would
you
never
think of as a
want to.
fantasy. Right.
Like
I
stuff I
don't know
see
where
in,
that came from. Oh, I have this fan, and I've got a question on that if we get to it. But I've got another thing that ties into this that is really going to blow your mind. Okay. This is really one of the oddest things that you have ever heard that we've ever talked about. He says, I'm 37 years old. I started dating a girl for a couple months. She's 26, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm fit and I have done a lot of yoga and I have the ability
no.
to, yes, to do my own, you know. Okay, so he gets into this thing where somehow there's somebody that has a bachelor party and instead of hiring a beefcake stripper, her friends wanted to see me do myself. Like I didn't was a little put off, but I thought, oh, okay, why not. And there's a few methods, and anyway, he goes into what he did. Here's the
Wait,
point: he
you
has
can do several different
yes,
ways? Is that what you just
yeah.
told
Well,
me?
he said you could go in, depending on the position of the legs, it can go deep, like we just talked about in the news story, or not so deep. You know.
What? Why does he need a
So he
girlfriend?
says, I'm really focused on this, and I can hear these girl noises behind me in this party, this little party, whatever. I guess girls were at the party. So yeah, they were. And anyway, they said, finish in your mouth, which he says, I don't normally do. Okay, so I do that.
Oh,
And it turns out that the girl behind me was my assistant at the office. I don't know what to do. I work at home, but tomorrow I have to go to the office. I'm going to see her. And the girl I'm dating, she knows that assistant. She said that she's mortified. She doesn't know what to do either. She's so embarrassed. So,
well, I can't believe that's the part he's embarrassed by. So you have a skill. You're obviously proud of it.
yeah,
So I don't see what the problem is. If you know what I
no,
mean, like,
I mean, there's no
duh,
problem with it. And he just did saying he's embarrassed about being seen, but that's what it is. I mean, obviously he did it realizing he was going to be in a public,
I thought he'd be
more or
embarrassed
less.
way earlier in the story. So there's
I had a friend who had this skill. I never watched him do it. I didn't want to, but he
it's
told me he had that skill.
yeah.
His wife said he certainly did.
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't want. I wasn't interested.
I think it's like when you say like what's the definition of nihilism, right? Or when you say oh no narcissism, right? What's the definition of narcissism? That 69ing yourself. It's like I don't do 69, I do 0. I just do a circle. So I don't here's what's dangerous is because it was a sexual act in front of an employee.
Well, that's right.
That's where it gets dangerous. But he didn't know she was there, and it was a bachelorette party, and he was hired to be there.
Yes, he
So
was.
it's very complicated. This is
There,
like
my
HR
wife is a lawyer who does cases like this. Um, I'll just give you an example. I don't mean cases like this exactly, but
saying,
the case is very
himself.
it's very common in a work situation. So she represents cities, counties, public entities. It's common for somebody, let's just say a police officer, and he does something off duty that is, other people regard as not illegal, but maybe distasteful or whatever. Does that affect his work? Then
Okay.
they find out he's been doing this and they don't like it. And so this whole thing, and there's even a case someone that was mercilessly teased after work, away from work, okay, at a party of people who were at work, but it wasn't a work party. It was a party that had Saturday night. And you invite people that you work with and your friends,
Yeah.
and they basically did something like, with a dartboard or something where they were, pointing darts at a picture, whatever it was, and he felt very denigrated. And so he sued his employer, but his employer didn't have anything to do with this. In this case, this is an off-duty bachelorette party. It's like they're not working anymore. So I would question that there's a
Yeah,
work problem with it, but it could be a lawsuit. You're absolutely right.
because it's very tricky because you can't be like, I can't believe someone at a bachelorette, I can't believe a stripper at a bachelor party got naked. Like, you can't say that because that's what you expect to happen. So
Right.
but I would definitely say you need to get a new assistant. You need to swap assistants with someone else in the office or something like that because you're both uncomfortable. But you want to find a situation where it's a win for both of you. Say, listen, I know you're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable too.
It could be worse. If he fires her, she could sue him for
Fire her.
an
No, that's
unlawful.
it. You don't want to fire her. You say, listen, let's
Yeah.
all. If there's someone else
Let's
who has,
pretend it never happened,
yeah.
and that maybe she would be okay
But
with
it's
that.
always this like nuclear thing in you always now you have like a permanent. Honestly, he needs to find.
She's got something. She holds over the guy now, right? She's got
he
something.
needs to know
Oh, I
he
saw
needs to work
you.
somewhere else. Yeah. So long story
She
short,
might
is
have pictures even. Okay.
don't learn how to do this.
Don't do that. If you do, don't do it at a party in public. Okay.
Just don't learn how to do it, and then you wouldn't have this. Would have never happened if the guy never tried to do it to himself. This is real.
Yeah.
Actually, real lesson is men shouldn't do yoga. That's the real lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. Just exactly. That was the problem, really. That one thing that could lead to another.
All right, you got one last one.
Yeah, I do actually. um, I overheard my girlfriend talking. We've been dating like 3 years, and she was having a conversation. Like I could just hear her talking. And she was just saying, if only he was as tall as my ex, he'd be 10 times better. If I could find someone taller than him, I would. He hears her say. He says, I should mention my girlfriend herself is under 5 feet tall, and I'm 5'9". It's not the height difference, but she said, it seems so trivial, but I just don't know what to say. And she claims, oh, I didn't really mean anything by it. She's apologized multiple times. So is this a red flag? He says. What do you think? Is that a red flag?
No,
Just
that's
something the girls talk about.
I wouldn't
Doesn't
call
mean
that a
anything.
red flag.
I wouldn't either.
So it's definitely people say things they don't mean when they think you're not going to hear them, right? Like she might have, there's a lot of things he can do, which is like the first thing is, which the more hurt you act by it, the less attractive you are. So you have to you are average. Average height's 5'9", right? So you have to just be like, it's not like you have a problem. You're just normal, which is like, now that's become a sin. Everyone wants to be extra normal. So that's where I would start with. I would say that the part that's hurtful is that she said, if I could find another guy who's taller, I would break up with him. She probably doesn't mean that. She was just saying
Very
that
hurtful.
yeah, only because he heard it. So what I would do
So
is,
you know what happened here is he broke up with her. He said
what?
he said he broke up with her because she got very defensive, even though she apologized. You know, it really bothered me so much. I felt lack of respect. She
That,
was crying and begging not to break up, but I just
yeah,
felt that she
I would
lacked
have
respect.
done. So here's what my advice would have been: is to get some of those elevator shoes that politicians
Yeah,
sometimes wear that look and
sure.
don't say anything
Like
to her.
the Florida, the governor of Florida
The other
apparently
thing
wears
I would
them.
do, and this is a classic prank, is buy copies of all of her clothes and shoes, but one size smaller, and swap out the tags, and like do this every, or sorry, buy one size larger. So put in the same tags, so that after a few
Honey, you
months,
look shorter. What happened? Kind
yeah,
of. What
she
happened to
proves
you? Look at
she's
your pants are so big for you. What happened? You're
yeah.
shrinking?
Also, what you do is you take like half an inch off each of her high heels, so now you seem huge. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things you
Well,
can do to. I would also make your hair start doing your hair up, so it makes you look taller, like a beehive.
well,
So
there's always going to be somebody taller, somebody with a bigger unit, somebody with bigger chest, you know, whatever it is, women or men. There's always going to be someone with more money. There's always
it's
going to
some
be somebody this, somebody that. But you know what? You only have like one life to live in your own body. You are who you are, and there's no choice. But you do have a choice about learning to be comfortable with it and accepting who you are, and not trying to be like someone else. So I'm glad he broke up with her because he deserves to be with somebody that's respectful and loves him for who he is and isn't upset with him because he's only 5'9". I think that's very so
yeah, but he
superficial to have said
eavesdropped.
that.
She didn't
I
say
wouldn't
it
get
to him.
beyond that either.
She didn't say it to him. He
No,
eavesdropped. He violated her
right,
privacy to
right.
hear
Well,
something
he
dumb.
said it was as they were down the hall or something, and he just heard it.
Yeah,
That's
I
what he
mean,
said.
he wired his girlfriend or whatever, and he's made it this huge deal. It's just like, I mean, the other thing is like, when you want to be with someone who will break up with you over something that small, right? Like, oh, if I meet someone who's 1 inch taller or makes $10 more an hour, like whatever the small thing is, like if someone's that petty about the relationship, they're not all in. I just don't think because she said, "Don't break up." I didn't really mean it. It's not what I meant. I was just whatever. Like, I don't think that she really is that way. But if she is, then yeah, he should break up with her. If someone's like, and I've
I know my wife would never say that to her friends. She would never say that. She would always be very supportive of me, and she'd always say nice things about me, and you know, she
oh,
would never say anything like that.
I'm sure my
I
wife
just
says
trust
like
her.
something that's about me all the time in her second
Oh, she
language.
does. You think so?
I mean, she probably like it's like a joking thing. It's just not it's not, it just to me doesn't cross the line of like it's serious enough. And I've had people make comments about my height that have hurt my feelings. I'm not a huge jump over 5'9". Okay.
But I've never said anything bad about my wife to anybody, nor would I ever. And I don't think she would about me. I mean, isn't that part of a
No.
relationship where you watch? No?
I would love to
Am I
say that
naive?
I've never said anything out of turn, but that would just be a lie. Like I've definitely said things that I shouldn't have said or dumb stuff.
I don't mean like, oh God, you know, we got into an argument. My wife did the dumbest thing. I can't believe she did that. Okay, that's different.
Oh
But
no,
this
I've
is
done
a
worse than that. No,
attribute.
I've done very much worse than that. So,
Okay,
um, you know,
I confess.
I'm not confessing anything on here. Are you kidding me? I know that's the
That
last
was the
time.
theme. That was the theme. That's what I said. That was going to be their theme.
Yeah. The theme is I'm not confessing. The theme is learn my lesson. Don't confess. Keep your mouth
Don't
shut.
confess. Never
She shouldn't have
confess.
confessed this. She should have kept her mouth shut and just accepted her life with her tiny, tiny, tiny boyfriend who's only a foot
Okay,
tall.
what she could have said is, "Oh, honey, you totally misunderstood. I was talking to Sherry, and Sherry was saying, "Oh, I have this so sad because my boyfriend is so short, and I wanted her to commiserate. You know how us girls commiserate. So I was just telling her that to make her feel better. Nothing to do with you, dear."
We should go to China
And she,
together. Get that surgery where they break your legs and make you taller.
they could. Well, I'm just saying she could have turned it into something. She could have explained it better. Instead, you know,
This
if she
guy,
hadn't been all, she was crying and all upset about it. She had just said, "Oh, you misunderstood." She would have been a better liar. Could have gotten away with it,
I
and
think it got in
would have
his
been
head and
fine.
became a washing machine where it just got.
He
He could.
couldn't get out of his head. Absolutely. Well, this has been a lot of fun as always. We're here every week at this time, and what you should do is you should subscribe and hit the bell icon or get alerts. Or if you're watching on Spotify, get alerts. Make sure you're downloading the episodes, and when you have something that's less than exciting in your life, you can be listening to us. That would be very exciting. So, um,
Feel the mayhem.
thank you, Men's Mayhem. We'll see you next week.